Hey everybody, welcome to one of my favorite things we do on this channel, which is flip through old rock magazines. And today we have a hit parader from April 1988, and I picked this one because, as people who follow this channel know, I like Dokken. And we've done a few different videos on them. Actually, we did a video on Back for the Attack not long ago. They got a lot of attention, got a lot of people kind of mad at me in the process. But this is a magazine that would have come out after Back for the Attack had come out. So also remember, these videos, when we film these magazine flip-throughs, we shoot them in 4K resolution. So if you have a 4K monitor, watch it on there, because then you'll be able to see all the detail. So Hit Parader, April 1988, $2.50. And of course, we have Don Dokken and George Lynch, who are both sporting what look like little toy gold guns. And of course, you know, at Feuds end, I think the idea here is that they're trying to convince the world, I guess, that maybe they're going to stop fighting, because they were notorious, Don Dokken and George Lynch, for being always feuding, always at each other's throats somehow. And which was unfortunate, because when they were good, when Dokken was good, there just wasn't anybody better. They were, you go back, especially my favorites, you go back to Tooth and Nail, you go back to Under Lock and Key, and they're just, from an 80s hard rock, 80s heavy metal standpoint, there just wasn't anything better, in my opinion. I loved those albums. I think Tooth and Nail, when I bought that, I must have played that thing hundreds of times. Anyway, over and over and over, Under Lock and Key, just love that stuff. So they were so good. They were so good. George Lynch, in the 80s, one of the best guitarists back then. Don Dokken, that great voice. They had great songs. Anyway, point was, I think the point, when I looked at this, the idea, I think, is that they wanted to make it sound like everything was going to be different now. You know, all the fighting's over, something like that. But of course, as you know, that was definitely not the case, because it was a while before they would work together again after that album. So, okay, so what do we have here? Enter Hit Parader's Super Sweepstakes every month, $5,000 in cash. Okay, that's kind of cool, interesting. Def Leppard, Metallica, AC/DC, Motley Crue, Kiss, Poison, Van Halen, Whitesnake, David Lee Roth centerfold in this magazine. Make your day, enter the LA Guns Double Barrel Contest. Oh, okay. All right, cool. So, and look at them. It's also interesting because when George Lynch, I remember after he left Dokken, he got on some like major health kick, bodybuilding. I mean, I remember seeing him a couple years later, because I kind of lost track of him. And then there's George Lynch, just, it was kind of amazing transformation the guy went through. And he's always been kind of always been a cool guy. Okay, Eat the Metal. Slammin, the Slammin Watusis? I guess that's what it's supposed to say, what it's supposed to mean. So who do we have here? Okay, Sanctuary. I actually mentioned them in another video recently. So this band right here, I only know two of the guys. I mean, I know two names of guys. I actually know one of the guys in the band, but this is Warrell Dane, he's the singer, and this is James Shepard, he's the bass player. And they kind of were the foundation of this group, Sanctuary. They were discovered, they were kind of a Seattle band, interestingly, and they were discovered by Dave Mustaine. And Dave Mustaine produced them when they were this band, Sanctuary. And then later on, they put out a few albums as Sanctuary, and then they reformed under another name, Nevermore. And you would be familiar with, if you're a guitar player, you've very likely heard of a guy named Jeff Loomis, who's just considered one of the great guitar players today. Anyway, he was the guitarist for the next band, which was Nevermore. And I didn't know a lot about them, but let's see here. So Sanctuary, Refuge Denied, the dark side of goth metal rears its hideous head as killer five-man band from Seattle teams up with legendary Metal Meister producer Dave Mustaine, for their stunning debut album. So I guess this one, I don't know a lot about them other than I know James Shepard. The Slammin Watusis, I don't know anything about them either. So obviously these were all just kind of brand new brand new metal groups. Cover story, there's Dokken. There's Sabotage, LA Guns, Metallica, AC/DC, Accept, Warlock, Whitesnake, Def Leppard, Guns N' Roses. Yeah, I mean, this is kind of the who's who from that time period of what was really popular. I remember when Macaulay Schenker Group, because it was always Michael Schenker Group, MSG, and then it became the Macaulay Schenker Group when they picked up a guy named Robin Macaulay, and he was a really good singer. I wish I could remember the name of. They had one kind of hit song on their kind of debut album as the Macaulay Schenker Group, and I actually was a fan of the Michael Schenker Group. I've got several of their albums. Of course, Michael Schenker, played with UFO, played with Scorpions, and had his own thing. And actually, some of his solo stuff or the stuff in the Michael Schenker Group was pretty cool. And he got really established himself with that. So, all right. So blah 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 blah. Here we have Gibson rises above the crowd, an advertisement for Gibson guitars. And looks like we have an SG Custom, Les Paul Custom, and a 335. I was in a band once where I was playing like that guitar and I had a Les Paul, and a guy that we were working with insisted that I start playing a 335, and somebody in the band had one, and I started playing this 335 live, and it was like one of the funnest guitars I've ever played in my life. Because those hollow bodies, what you can do with the feedback is just amazing. It takes a little bit of work learning how to tame it and control the noise from the hollow body, but it was such a great guitar. So, this is interesting because this is Gibson. Gibson rises above the crowd. They're slamming on all the other guitar manufacturers. I mean, look at they're even slamming on Eddie Van Halen right there. What is it? That says Forn Factory. But look at this. This is what caught my eye. This says Blender, making fun of Fender. Kroomer, making fun of Kramer. Of course, Eddie Van Halen had started working with Kramer, so they put all the stripes on there. Ivan Had. Cartels, that's almost certainly supposed to be, a slam on Charvel. Yamaha, not one and no name. How funny. And it's like, here's this demon leading them into the nether regions or something, and you have all these bats, and then the Gibson rises above. That's pretty funny. That's interesting, man. They're slamming on these other manufacturers. That's kind of, I've never seen anything. I mean, coming from Gibson, that's kind of, I've never seen anything like that in an ad. That's kind of interesting, though. Okay, Dave Mustaine. Each month, his parader, rock and roll celebrity, learn about his formative years. Oh, this would be cool. So this is a little bit about just Dave Mustaine. I only saw, I saw Metallica or Megadeth in concert once. They were actually really cool. I loved them. Thought they were amazing. And this was the So Far So Good So What time period. Oh yeah, and that's when they put out Anarchy in the UK, the old Sex Pistols song. So on So Far So Good So What. And isn't that kind of a fascinating thing? Because some of these bands, like Metallica, like Megadeth, and even early Iron Maiden to some extent, and there's other bands too, I mean Slayer and others, that have this kind of an interesting parallel connection with punk rock. And it's like the attitude is the same somehow. I actually had a story I've told on this channel before where the first time I ever heard Accept was a guy that I met walking home from school one day, and we were just talking about music, and he says, hey, come over to my house. He had a couple records for me to listen to. You remember how we used to do that stuff. So I went over to his house, walked into his room, and he's got Dead Kennedys posters hanging up, and then he pulls out Accept, Restless and Wild. And I find out this guy's really into punk rock and like speed metal as it was coming out at the time. And so it was just kind of interesting, this kind of crossover that we had back then, where the music was similar a little bit, but maybe more than anything, the attitude was there. And so the skill level was totally different, but again, they were the There was something about those styles of music that they were in some ways cousins. And this is an example of it. You know, you've got Dave Mustaine covering Anarchy in the UK, like a Sex Pistols song. So there was some sort of interesting connection back then. Anyway, whatever. Hang on just a second, this will be really quick. With hundreds of videos on our channel now, we've made playlists to make it easy for you to find whatever the thing is that you're interested in. We have a playlist with all of our Rush videos, Kiss, Led Zeppelin, Van Halen. We have categories like 80s metal and even our popular magazine flip-throughs, where we go through page by page with Circus Magazine, Hit Parader, and others, all in 4K resolution. You'll find it all organized and ready to explore. Just click the playlist tab on our channel's homepage. All right, back to the video. Okay, Information Center, Twisted Sister, Hit Parader's Heavy Metal Hotline, Hear From Your Headbanging Heroes. So this is a phone number you'd call? Beginning January 29th, 1988. Call $1.50 for the first minute. And then you can go listen to the latest gossip. Hear from, okay, interesting. And anyway, and then there's Twisted Sister. And then here's Lars with Tama. All this handwriting stuff. Instead of all this, they are telling you should know I'm not playing these drums because I get them for free or something. I play them because I like the way they sound. Oh, okay, so he's got some handwritten thoughts about why he takes their drums, or why he's one of their spokespeople, why he endorses them. Sabotage, I know almost nothing about these guys. I know, and maybe one of you can tell us what song we should listen to. I've heard some of their music, and these two guys were brothers, as I recall. I think he's the singer. I don't know, as I recall, I didn't love his voice, and I don't know, it just didn't do any. The stuff I listened to didn't do anything for me. Nothing against them. I just didn't, for whatever reason, the stuff that I was exposed to never got me. So, Tommy Lee and Pearl, totally incredible. Any way you look at it. Okay, Tommy Lee. Did you ever see Motley Crue in concert when he was doing those drum solos? Those crazy, like, because he had the drum. It started out that would like flip over. And then it got so crazy that he turned it into a roller coaster that would go across the. And you gotta hand it to Tommy Lee for that, because I'll tell you, I'm like a lot of people. When I would go to concerts, and the drum solo would come. Yes, it's amazing the stuff they can do, and it was good. But honestly, I just got bored in drum solos, and Tommy Lee kind of knew that was the way a lot of people felt, and so he's thinking, I got to get people to pay attention to me. And he just creates this crazy show, drums spinning around and going across. And it was funny because you go see Motley Crue in concert, and the one time you don't want to leave the arena is while Tommy Lee's playing his solo, which is the total opposite of every other band. So anyway, like I said, you got to hand it to him, because there he is upside down in his drum, that cage that they made that it would sit in. Anyway, that's interesting. Iron Maiden's Adrian Smith. Does food really make the man? Each month Hit Parader sets out to find out how true that old axiom is. This month's lunch muncher is none other than Iron Maiden's guitar maven Adrian Smith, holding an apple. You know, I keep saying we're going to do it. One of these days, we're going to come back and read these things. We've actually, I shouldn't say we're going to, because we've done it a couple times, but this stuff, we're gonna make some videos just coming back and reading these. These are great. So here we have Make Your Day, which is reference back to Dirty Harry, of course, Make My Day. She's holding a gun, and I don't know what the point of this is. Pretty woman holding a gun, make your day. I bet you, I'm guessing it has to do with the next page, which is LA Guns. With the LA Guns double-barreled, okay, so they have a contest. That looks like a BC Rich. like a BC Rich bass. Check out the LA Guns infamous brand double-barreled rock with double-barreled contest. Okay, grand prize BC Rich guitar. That's a Warlock bass. Okay, and there it is right there. LA Guns double-barreled contest ends midnight, April 15th, 1988. Hurry! Oh, I guess maybe we might be a little late on that. Don't miss this chance to make your day. And if we go back to the previous page, make your day. Okay, so these are that's what the point was. And then here's LA Guns, of course. Yeah, they were kind of I saw them in concert in the 90s, like many, many years after this. And they were okay. I was never a big fan, but they obviously made a mark, and they did have a definite fan base. How do you enter? Check this out. Pick 2 song titles from LA Guns, act them out by yourself or with some friends. Take 2 pictures. Oh my gosh, that's funny. Take 2 pictures and post them to social media. Yeah, well, what a guitar. Metallica, Power Personified. Here's Metallica. There's Lars again. Okay, so Metal Monsters recall early days with special video presentation. Sometimes it seems Metallica can do no wrong, like the proverbial King Midas. Everything the West Coast power metal unit touches seems to turn. Let's see. So the latest example of that phenomenon is the group's home video, Cliff 'Em All. So Cliff Burton had died, and they put out it was kind of, I never had it, never saw it, but it was basically, I think, a videotape that was just some of the early days with Cliff Burton, because this was around the same time that they did Garage, was it called Garage Days Revisited, where they had some cover songs from the early days of Metallica. So anyway, that's what they're obviously. Oh, duh, it's right there. Garage Days Revisited. A few months back, we made sure that it said the 598 EP right in the front. We don't want some records or blah 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 blah. Okay. We didn't do this to capitalize on the fact that the video features Cliff, by the way. All right, so Tony McAlpine plays DiMarzio pickups and strings. That's kind of a cool looking guitar, DiMarzio. And these must be, okay, these must be the string boxes. 8, 9, yeah, that's got to be, because that's 8 gauge, 9 gauge, 10 gauge on the strings. Those are cool looking cases or boxes. Huh. Tattoos. Okay. Next, Faster Pussycat. I can't say anything intelligent about them. I remember that they existed, but I couldn't say anything intelligent about them. So let's see, Gangrene, You Got It. This must be a band. It's always fascinating to me flipping through these things, how often there will be these unknown bands that it looks like the record company buys these full page ads for this band, hoping that you'll mail in and get it on LP cassette, and then they give you a mailing address. This one doesn't even, some of them we've seen, they actually give you an address where to mail for it. Road Racer Records, so it's not a big label. Does anybody remember Gangrene? Because I've never, like, this is the first time I've ever heard of them. I don't know anything about them. Lion, I do remember Lion. I couldn't tell you much about them, but it was a band that, yeah, just a hard rock heavy metal band. It's if an alien had been beamed down from some distant planet and took a look at Los Angeles rock scene, he might surmise the bands were signed for their skill in applying makeup rather than their ability to rock. In light of the success of such West Coasters, Poison, Motley Crue, Faster Pussycat, such an observation might not be far off. But in the face of growing style over substance movement comes Lion, a 4-man unit from the heart of L.A., who seems to, yeah, funny. It's interesting because this was, what did we say this was? This was 88? So this was kind of the worst of it, wasn't it? When it was the hair and the makeup and all that. And but you could feel it. Things were starting to adjust a little bit because Guns N' Roses had come in, and Axl Rose. Other than that, the live shots in Welcome to the Jungle, none of that, none of the hairspray, none of the makeup, and it was like they were pushing into a little bit more of that. What would be the word? It was less fake. It was less. It felt less pretentious. And it probably was pretentious in its non-pretension, but it just felt more authentic. That's a better word, I think, for it. It felt more authentic sometimes. And you know who else was then starting to pop up around this time? People starting to pay attention to him with Soundgarden, and matter of fact, we saw Nevermore at the beginning. I mean, some of that stuff was just kind of pushing in a little bit at this point, because as they point there, you get all these bands, and it had just gone so far in the makeup and hairspray direction that people were just getting. We were hitting that point when it was going to start going like this, and then it was just going to go away. And then like we've talked about on this channel before, when 91 hit, everything was gone, and then everything changed. So it's just interesting that there was some level of self-awareness that all of us had about, this is a little silly, isn't it? Anyway, Mega Muscle, and they have DOD pedals here, and some dude that is pretty ripped playing a guitar, and he actually, the way he's holding his hands, he looks like he might actually know how to play. It's funny because sometimes you can tell when somebody's holding a guitar, like, you've never held a guitar before, have you? So. Yeah, because it almost looks like he has his palm down on the bridge so he can mute the strings. And you have to be a guitar player to know that that's a thing. And maybe I'm seeing it wrong, but anyway, who cares? Whatever. All right. DOD. AC/DC, Angus Young. Speaking of Gibson SGs, I think we saw one just a second ago. There's Angus. And anyway, with his typical Angus Young thing. And this was blow up your video time period. There's a different attitude in the AC/DC camp. For the first time in their long, glorious history, this Thunder from Down Under is battling to regain their commercial foothold. Not since 1981's For Those About to Rock, We Salute You has an AC/DC album gone platinum. That's actually, I didn't know that. That's really fascinating. So For Those About to Rock, because Back in Black came out, of course, just one of the greatest albums ever recorded, if not the greatest. I just love. I think that album is untouchable as far as it's just perfect. And then, of course, they followed it up with For Those About to Rock. And even though the album wasn't as good as Back in Black, the song For Those About to Rock was as good as anything that they'd ever put out. I love that. Might be. I mean, I don't know. When I just start thinking of what my favorite AC/DC songs are, that is up there. So great. But then that's kind of interesting that they didn't have another platinum album after that one. And they did kind of, I don't know, people don't like when I say this, but I do think that AC/DC never lost their way. And I said that in another video, and I guess I don't mean it quite that way. It was that it just became a little bit rote. And so it just didn't have the power and the thing that they had when Brian Johnson joined the band, and of course all the stuff they had before him. It was just so good. It was so great. It was so real. It was so authentic. It was, everything about it was great. And then it was like after Back in Black, which was so big, For Those About to Rock, which was still in and of itself very big. It was almost like maybe the public, similar to other things, just got a little bit like bored with it, with the new stuff, because it was kind of similar to the stuff they'd done before. And yet it's a testament to how great they were that to this day, even so, they never stopped being I don't think they ever got to a point when they couldn't fill up an arena. Did they? I mean, they maybe weren't as popular in the late 80s, around this time period, but they were still huge. AC/DC comes to town and you're like, yeah, let's go see them. I mean, they just had established themselves as kind of like the people's band in some way, where it just kind of resonated with everybody. So, and then you just go all the way back through their whole library of stuff, and it was all good. And it's still fun to this day. I mean, go the song Highway to Hell. Has there ever been a cooler rock anthem ever? Even I Want to Rock and Roll All Night, Party Every Day, Kiss doesn't even touch it. And that's an anthem. That's a rock anthem. But Highway to Hell, there's just nothing better than that as far as rock anthems, guitar hooks, cool solos, great vocals, great lyrics. Anyway, so they established themselves, and it just almost didn't even matter what they put out after that. I'm talking about them way too much. Okay, so here we go. So we have Robin Crosby from Rat, Planet Jackson. One fan has a bone to pick with him. Okay. And then here we have free shipping, all foreign orders. So there's a store in LA, and it looks like they sell like outfits. That's a classic Don Dokken looking outfit right there. And anyway, I remember in the 80s seeing people wearing this stuff. Woo! I have to admit, I never did. The closest I ever got to any of this stuff was I got one of those, Def Leppard had the Union Jack kind of sleeveless shirts. I got one of those, and I wore it kind of a lot. But that was as close as I ever got to any of this stuff, honestly. Let's see here. But if you wore this stuff, put it down on the notes. We got to know about it. Tell us about it. So we have handcuff, spiked belt, spurs. Yeah, this is all the stuff that people, the metal stuff back then. Wow, it's just amazing. It's amazing thinking about that. Okay, so here's Metallica. Okay, here's the home vid. Here, they're actually selling it here on Elektra Superior, so they're just advertising it. 90-minute home video was named for the late Metallica bassist Cliff Burton. 1998 home video, Cliff 'Em All, yeah. First Metallica video of any kind, features bootleg concert and interview footage. And then, of course, they have all their albums at this point. And Justice for All was not out yet. I think it would come out a few months after this magazine. But there's the one I was talking about earlier, the Garage Days Revisited. Okay. All right, so. And there's Joey Tempest. Europe's Joey Tempest, only in it for the money, ? Anyway, he was the singer for Europe. Oh, it says it right there, Europe's Joey Tempest. We did a video on Europe's Final Countdown, I don't know what this was, a couple months ago. And similarly to the Dokken one, I got a lot of people very upset at me when I made that video. I had the album. I bought it. I actually bought the album before that one. I just kind of lost track of Europe. I mean, I thought the stuff was cool. It was okay. I didn't like go crazy for it, but there are Europe fans that love Europe. I mean, that love these guys. And what my comment was that got so many people upset was that it was the whole idea of how we'd gotten to that point that we were just throwing keyboards in all of our kind of metal music. And it wasn't, see, I think the reason that it came across wrong is I kept saying keyboards, but it wasn't about the keyboards. Because keyboards have always been a part of great rock music. I mean, going all the way back, Deep Purple wouldn't have been anything without John Lord and that organ. I mean, it's the same thing with Uriah Heep. That raw organ. Doors, the organ that was in there. And you've got all the great Rush stuff. And just go on through, I mean, go back to the... so much stuff. I mean, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and you start going through all the stuff. There were keyboards in everything. It was everywhere. But when we got into the early 80s and synthesizers came in, and you had Gary Newman, you had Depeche Mode, you had Flock of Seagulls, all these groups that were using these kind of cheeseball keyboards that were they sounded like they belonged with European new wave. It's what it was. And then for some reason, it started sneaking into our heavy metal. and the organ stuff, all the other stuff that had been done was great. But then what happens, and where it happened initially, for me, at least when I really noticed it, was High and Dry. Because High and Dry, Def Leppard, like, how do you touch that album? It's like one of the greatest rock and roll albums ever made. It It is near perfect. It's just fantastic. It's so great. And then they re-released it a few years later with what? Keyboards. They went back in and they added synthesizer sounds into the songs. Like that's gonna, what, like why? And it's because there's a bunch of people in the record industry that seem like they thought, you know what? Keyboards are really hot now. We need to put keyboards in everything. And that's what started happening. So much so that they go back to a masterpiece and they start adding synthesizer sounds to something that didn't need them. And so here they go. So then they put these synthesizer sounds in high and dry. And I mean, to me, it's a little bit like going to the Mona Lisa and going, you know, back when they painted the Mona Lisa, they didn't have hot pink back then. And here in the 80s, we love hot pink. You know, we should go add some hot pink to the Mona Lisa. That's how it felt to me. Like you're doing it just to do it because it's the new thing. And so they did that on high and dry. And then Dio, around the same time, puts out Rainbow in the Dark. And I love Dio. But if there was one thing where I thought, are you serious? Really? He put out Rainbow in the Dark and he was so proud of that bink, 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 bink. And it wasn't like, it was just this bad synth tone. It wasn't like it was a great tone. And the line was, it's a hook, whatever, that's fine. Nothing wrong with a good hook. And he was like, we're the first metal band to put a keyboard hook in. And I thought, you're wearing that like a badge on your sleeve. And I think that's ridiculous. Why? Why do you feel a need to just put it in there? It was like, again, it's like adding hot pink to something that anyway. So then he does that. And then it just seems like everywhere people are putting these cheeseball synth sounds into their songs. And then my point was, I remember the first time I heard Final Countdown, which is a great song. It's catchy, it's fun, you can sing along with it, you can jump up and down. I mean, it's like awesome. It's an epic, great song. But the sounds that they used, those trumpet sounds, even at the time, to me, sounded cheap. They sounded dated. And you could almost tell when they put it out, you go, yeah, well, 20 years from now, this thing is going to sound so silly. And I mean, let's be honest. Today, I love it simply because it sounds so cheesy and it sounds like the 80s. But man, if there was ever a song that sounds dated, it's that one. Because it has those dated fake trumpet sounds. And look, it's what they had at the time, and it's what they decided to do, fine. And who am I to say anything? I'm nobody. I understand that. But I'm just saying that when I heard that, it had that same feeling of, why are we forcing these cheap sounds, these synthesizer sounds into these tunes? It sounds like we're forcing it. And when you got a guy like John Norum playing guitar for Europe, you think he couldn't have come up with something better than that, on his guitar, rather than having to throw. Anyway, and again, I'm nobody. I'm just some dude yelling about this stuff. It was just at the time, and still today. Today I love it all because it's nostalgic and whatever, and that's the decisions they made, and it's all part of the fun story at this point, and it gives me something to ramble about on this channel. But I say that because I did a video about Europe where I went through a similar discussion and people just gone crazy that I would have the gall to knock the keyboards. And it wasn't, I got nothing. I love keyboards. I'm a huge keyboard fan. Love them. Like I said, some of my favorite stuff from the early 70s and even into the 80s. I actually am a fan of Depeche Mode. I love the keyboards and their stuff, but it doesn't belong in my heavy metal. There you go. Okay. All right. Wipe the sweat off the brow and move on. DC LaCroix. I don't know anything about this. Heavy Metal Machine. This again must be some band that was, that was taking out an ad. Their record company, cassette and album. There's the codes. Yeah, if you know anything about them, tell me. Music by mail. $3.99 each. Special introductory offer to all cassette buyers. Use this page or photocopy as your order form. Mark an X in the box next to your selections. And it looks like a bunch of tapes that are all $3.99. Postage and handling $3.50. Make checks payable to, you remember this? Postage and, this is so great. This is in Brooklyn. And these are all like legit stuff, except early stuff, Breaker, Restless and Wild, I'm a Rebel. Then we got Aerosmith, Tiger, Alcatraz, No Parole from Rock and Roll. I mean, where do I start? I mean, all these, so many big, huge, famous stuff. I mean, there's all kinds of things here. There's Ozzy, Ted Nugent, Uriah Heep, just mentioned them a second ago. Johnny Winter, Edgar Winter. Let's see, Uriah Heep, Michael Schenker, talked about that. Yeah, so we are not a club. We only sell cassettes. For $3.99. Wonder what that was all about. I think those were legit cassettes. That's something. Okay, free discount catalog up to 70% off, featuring over 1,000 name brand products from guitar, bass, banjo, musician's friend. So what is it? So what a mandolin. Musician's friend. So you get the catalog. So is this the same music? That's interesting. Okay. Simone's, what is this? Bon Jovi earring. These looks like these are necklaces and earrings. I always wonder how many people actually did this, like sent in. Because they put these addresses, telling them where to send their money, what selections they want. Learn power drumming. Power drumming. Huh. There's King Diamond. Power Surge right here, Geffen. There's the Geffen logo, a Geffen amplifier. Looks like they're giving away Ibanez and a Tom. Oh, and here's your grand prize winners. Sherry, Rick, Daryl, Darren, Krista, and Joe. Looks like they all won. And then they list some of the Geffen bands, Whitesnake, Aerosmith, Tesla, Sammy Hagar, Guns N' Roses, Y&T, mentioned them a few days ago. Ezio, did a whole video about Ezio recently. I loved Ezio. That first album, man, that was so killer. If you liked Ezio, go watch the video we made, because we did one about them, and I loved Ezio. Let's see, the new Accept, left to right, Jorg Fisher, Stefan Kaufman, Wolf Hoffman, he's a guitar player, Rod Armitage, Peter. Okay, so Rob Armitage, he was the guy. So right around this time, Udo leaves the band, and Udo couldn't handle our new music, and he knew it. What? Okay, I have to read this article. That sounds such a strange thing. Anyway, this Rob Armitage, he was replacing Udo, but I don't think this guy ever. I don't think he ever sang on anything, because it was David Reese, I think, then came in and replaced him, and then anyway it's been a little tumultuous, but I love Udo Dirkschneider. He was just cool. There's something about this short little German dude, this little tank, and that voice that would just blood curdling. I talked about it a minute ago. The first time I heard or Fast as a Shark, when I went over to that guy's house and he played Accept for me, and you hear his voice the first time, and you go, "What in the world is this crazy noise?" And it's this little dude. Guy was just so entertaining, so interesting. So, all right, so here we go. So, man, we are taking a long time on this video. Okay, Boomers. Dokken Duo does Boomers. So there's Jeff Pilson, George Lynch. Apparently, they play Boomers. And they're advertising them right there. GHS Strings. Okay, Heavy Metal Happenings. T-shirts. Here we go. Back patches. We've talked about those before on this channel. Those, were you one of those people that had a back patch? So you had your jean jacket and you'd put those big patches on the back of them. This must be what they're talking about here. And man, written in the size of font that an old man like me, I wouldn't even know what I was doing. Need a magnifying glass to see this. There's John Bon Jovi, Heavy Metal Happenings. There's Stryper. We did a video on them not long ago that actually got a lot of attention. See, I think it did. I think that one did pretty well. see, letter of the month. Heavy Metal Hotline, there that is again. Learn the art of recording. The recording workshop. There's a bunch of 2-inch tape flying around the screen. Dark Age introducing from the rock and roll capital. Is that the youngest metal band in the world? Jamie Smith, 13, he's bass. David Scott, 13, vocalist. These two are 15. Talk about novelty. Isn't it funny all the different ways that people would find novelty ways of selling things and say, hey, we've got the youngest metal band ever. Aggressive Productions. Debut album featuring their hit single. Their hit single. It was a hit single. Excuse me. PMRC, Better Listen to Me. Oh my gosh, that is great. That might be my favorite thing today. A bunch of kids have a song called PMRC, Better Listen to Me. That's beautiful. I love that so much. 1988, okay. Vince Neil does The Dude Looks Like a Lady. Little reference to Aerosmith there. Metal Method guitar lessons from Doug Marks from Hawk. There he is playing as, got to be as Jackson. Okay. And then here's this. We've mentioned these things before. These are always so much fun. And I said last time, of course I did this a few times, but part of what made this thing so cool was that you'd get an education from it too. Because you'd find out about albums and bands and things you'd never heard of before. And sometimes you just see, what's that? What's this? And then you'd kind of just, anyway, you'd read it over and over and you'd kind of learn about new things. And it was just a weird little education that you could get from that. So, okay. Doro Pesh. So, Warlock, Too Wild, Too Tame. Somebody sent me, we talked about her once, because I don't know a lot about Warlock. And somebody, this was a couple months ago, I think we saw this band in another magazine, and I said I didn't know anything. And somebody sent a link to a song. I don't remember what it was now, and it was so good. So it actually, send your links to these things, because I actually go watch a lot of the stuff that people send, just because I get curious about it. And then it helps me too, because I get a little bit of an education. I knew almost nothing about her, and then I go listen to that stuff. She was pretty awesome. I mean, she was solid. Oh my gosh, Whitesnake with Adrian Vandenberg and Vivian Campbell. So that's so funny, because Vivian Campbell, of course, where did we first hear him? Dio. He was the hotshot guitarist for Dio. He was a hotshot guitarist. I mean, he was awesome. I loved. He was just great, Vivian Campbell. Adrian Vandenberg, of course, for one of the first time most of us ever heard him was the band Vandenberg. They had 3 albums. I have all 3 of them. And Burning Heart was their first, might have been their only hit. It was a good tune. So anyway, so he comes in and joins, can't tell what he's playing. He comes in and joins Whitesnake after, so they put out the 1987 album, Whitesnake did. And then I guess during the recording of it or afterwards, basically Coverdale fires everybody. And then he's picking up Adrian Vandenberg. He's picking up Vivian Campbell. Gets Rudy Sarzo, I think. I mean, anyway, he's rebuilding the band. But Vivian Campbell was only in the band for, he wasn't in there very long. And then, anyway, so that's just interesting that we caught him. We caught him right at the moment that he was actually in the band. And then, of course, eventually he ended up where he is today, which is in Def Leppard, which to me breaks my heart ever so slightly. Because in Dio, he was so amazing. His guitar playing was so cool. It was so fresh. It was so exciting. It was so great. And then in Def Leppard, he's just filling a space. It's not like he's being the Vivian Campbell that we all loved when he first hit. He just now plays, he's basically a fill-in in a cover band. Really, he's just playing Def Leppard. He's playing covers for him. And it just, like I said, just a tiny little bit makes me sad because he was so great with Dio. He was so awesome, fresh face, great. Just everything about him was so great. And then just kind of that dies off, you know, and with kind of a whimper. He plays on, I think it was Intermission. I think he plays a little bit on that thing, and Craig Goldie plays on it. I think that's the one. And then he's just kind of gone, and then he's there, Whitesnake for a little bit, and then he goes and plays with, I can't remember the other band, some other band, and then now he's in Def Leppard a million years later, whatever. Okay, I don't need to get off on this. But yeah, but Snake's success story continues, LP grows. I mean, that album, quadruple platinum, that 1987 album was just crazy how successful that was. Looks like somebody cut something out here. It was Def Leppard left to right, Rick Allen, Phil Collins, Joe Elliott. So we missed out on the Def Leppard picture right there. And then as we got the bottom half of Axl Rose cut off, so we're going to miss out on this article, it looks like. There's Slash, of course, playing his Les Paul, which was kind of a big deal back then because the whole, the 80s was all about Jacksons and speed and, the flashy guitars. And, the stuff that had been developed specifically for shredding. And then Slash walks in with his Les Paul. And it just kind of was like, man, he's cool. Anyway, just kind of a interesting time period. I think did I mention them earlier? Because it was during this time when it was, you could feel that it was getting they'd gone a little bit far. Poison and the Crew and all this stuff, it would just had gone a little bit too far, and it was starting to tip. Then we have Dokken at Feuds End. Got to read this sometime. Back for the Attack rockets Don and the boys to the top of the rock pile. I have to go read this sometime because, man, these clothes look like the ones in that ad we saw earlier. Look at those tassels. Wow. Wow, Don. That's amazing. He's got that little thing around his neck. Woo. Jeff Pilson, George Lynch. Yeah, they were, you know what? I'm making fun of them. They were great. I loved this stuff. They were so good. But this was it, man. They were not long for the world of heavy metal at this point. They were about to go away. Mick Brown, yeah, George Lynch. And then we get to the centerfold of David Lee Roth. And we have been talking for almost an hour. So I think it's probably time for us to end this video and maybe pick up on and do a part 2 of this video sometime and go through the rest of this magazine. This is the April 1988 Hit Parader. So we're going to leave it right there with our centerfold of David Lee Roth right there on the screen. It was a weird time for David Lee Roth too, wasn't it? So anyway, all right. Hey, thanks for taking the time to watch this video. And if you liked this, I'm sure there's somebody that would like it too. So go throw it on your Facebook page. Go share, email it to a few people. We really appreciate that because that's how these channels grow and how you get the word out. And you'd be doing some people a favor because I'm sure there's a lot of people that would enjoy this. If you enjoyed it, they'd be like, yeah, that's kind of fun going through that magazine. And so we really appreciate you following the channel, liking the video, and obviously leave some comments. Do you remember any of these bands? There were several bands we just blew right through because I didn't know anything about them. Some of them that I'd be surprised if anybody knew who they were, but maybe you do. So put it down in the comments of the kind of stuff that we need to look out for because it's always great to hear all of these different things and get people's opinions about them. I'm sure there will probably be a few more people that'll tell me that I'm an idiot for my stance on the synthesizer sounds and whatever else, but that's part of the fun of this channel, isn't it? So anyway, hey, thanks for taking the time to visit me today and have yourself a fantastic day.